Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Denisha McPherson. I am the outgoing president of the National Circle for Omicron Delta Kappa, and we are excited for you to join our signature program, which is our Teach Out. Happy Veterans Day to you all, and thank you for attending the Transition Home. Today's presentation will be by Dr. Regina Lopez, who is a board certified human services practitioner and U.S. Marine Corps veteran dedicated to improving the lives of homeless veterans in Los Angeles County. With over a decade of experience in nonprofit leadership, accreditation, and compliance, she has advanced impactful programs that promote stability and wellness for underserved communities. Regina holds a Doctor of Law and Policy from Northeastern University and is passionate about creating sustainable, compassionate systems of care for those who have served. Welcome, Dr. Lopez. Thank you so much for doing today's session, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. McPherson. I want to just give you a special thank you for offering this opportunity to me. I'm very passionate about veteran services, especially being a veteran myself. So, any opportunity that I have to share about my experience, my professional experience, and my research, I'm always game. So, thank you. So, I am going to share my screen, and then we will get started. See. Okay. Again, my teach out today is called the Transition Home. It is a hierarchy of needs for veterans entering civilian life, and understanding reintegration through research, practice, and experience. Again, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, so I wanted to create something that encapsulates my experience as a veteran, my personal experience as a veteran, my professional experience as a service provider, and then also my doctoral research. So, why does this matter? Transition from military service is a process that touches every part of a veteran's life. It's not just a career shift; it's a complete identity
Uh,
change.
Wait,
Oh,
Regina, yeah, the screen, your presentation isn't moved. It's
it
still
has
in,
not moved.
no,
Is it still on the first screen?
it's not even in presentation mode right now.
Oh,
We
that's
just
weird.
see
Okay, let me see. Maybe I haven't. Can you guys see my screen now?
it. We can see your screen is just not in presentation mode. Can you hit the presentation thing and maybe it'll
Yes, let's
change?
try this again. Okay, how about this?
I think what's happening is, do you have two screens? Because if you have it's not showing um, the the uh, the
It's not showing the full
presentation.
screen?
Yeah, if you go up to slideshow in the top bar,
Okay, let's try
um,
this.
and then do
Let's try this
show,
one.
yeah, or yeah, it should. Let's see if it redoes that.
How was that?
Now go
Nope.
over. Yeah, um,
Sorry.
take presenter view off. You go so
Okay.
where monitors are, all the way over the
Um,
top.
all the way at
Uh,
the top.
if you go where you see the little monitor, kind of, yeah, take presenter view off, and then
Okay.
try to do presentation. Click
Okay,
on
let's
the.
try this again. Let's try. How's that?
No, it's still not showing
Nope.
the presentation. Why is it not showing the presentation?
Hmm. I swear this is the same thing that happened during my dissertation. There must be something with me and technology. I wonder, well,
Can you click from beginning again?
anything?
No.
Yeah, well, it's showing the first slide, but it's not doing the presentation.
Okay.
Um,
Well, maybe we'll just do maybe I can,
If you can, you might just have to click on each slide on your left side bar.
that's what I'm thinking. And then do it that way. Okay. And maybe I can just, let me see if I can, no, not that. Excuse me. No, why this is doing this today. So maybe I'll just do something like that. So my apologies. Okay, so going back to why it matters. Transition from the military service is is a process that touches every single service member. And it not only does it touch every single service member, but it also touches every part of their life. So it's not just a career shift, it's in fact a complete identity change. And so I think a big part of that is in the military, everything is very structured. Your day, what to expect, for the most part. But that also includes your housing, your income, your health care, everything that is supplemental into making sure that you can perform your duties. That's all very structured and expected. And even coming down to the sense of belonging. So once you separate, that entire structure almost disappears overnight. So just speaking of, of myself as someone who's who's had to navigate this transition, and I've also supported hundreds of veterans within my professional career. I've learned that the greatest predictor of success isn't just access to services. I found that it's a delicate balance between four key needs: housing, income, healthcare, and purpose. And so, what I wanted to do in today's teach out is share what my conceptual adaptation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and utilizing my lived experience, my own research, and real world data for my professional experience. So, according to the Department of Labor, about 200,000 service members transition from active uniform service every year, and a little under 50% report experiencing difficulty adjusting to civilian life. Now, I am, as Dr. Denisha had mentioned earlier, I am based in Los Angeles County, so I will be referencing some of that data. However, I do want to note that I did try to create a presentation that includes the entire U.S., but there is going to be a little bit of a focus on LA County. And again, the reason why that is a bit of a focus, not only because I live here, but LA County is home to the largest homeless veteran population. So veterans make up about 7% of the adult population. However, veterans are overrepresented in the homeless population, with 13%, about 13% of homeless adults are veterans. And so again, like I said, LA County represents the largest number of homeless veterans in the country. And so looking at the problem, and so it's not an issue of veterans not being resilient. The problem is, and just from my experience and my research, that the system is quite fragmented. Housing programs don't always talk to healthcare providers. Workforce agencies may not understand military experience, and how to reinterpret that. And so with my research in particular illuminated some of those gaps, particularly in LA County. And my research looked at how veterans access services, and depending on their character of discharge, and even within in the impact of location, even within the same county. So what I found is that the needs are universal, but access to those resources and services are not. Okay. So looking at my conceptual adaptation, this is what I call, excuse me, a hierarchy of transition needs. And so I wanted to, when I thought about what do I think is kind of going to be the most important, like that core factors that are going to help a veteran to be successful as they're transitioning during that transition period from active uniform, I settled with 4 tiers. One is going to be housing. The second is income employment. The third is healthcare. And the fourth, and just as important, is leisure, belonging, and purpose. So like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it starts from the ground up with each tier interacting with one another. And so at the base of, again, is housing stability, which is the foundation. And next is your income and employment, your ability to sustain and to create and sustain independence. The next is going to be healthcare, which supports wellness. And then at the top is the space where veterans, including myself, rediscover meaning and identity as civilians. When all 4 of these tiers align, that's when we see true reintegration, not just survival, but thriving. And so this hierarchy helps us to see transition not as a checklist, but as a continuum. Excuse me. Okay, so looking at the bottom tier, the foundation of the hierarchy, of the pyramid, so to say, is the housing stability. So stable housing is the cornerstone of all post-service success. So without it, maintaining employment or consistent healthcare is nearly impossible. So the rationale is backed by evidence-based research that treats housing as a basic right and addresses what is considered to be the most immediate need first. So as an example, I've worked in grant per diem services before. So if a veteran comes in, presents to a grant per diem provider, a service provider with a gamut of issues, and they reported to have mental health issues, substance use, and homelessness, the housing will always be addressed first, as it would be very difficult for that veteran to begin to focus on anything else while unhoused. And furthermore, focusing on housing helps to build that rapport between that service provider and that veteran, which can increase the likelihood of the veteran engaging in supportive services post housed. That part is really, really important because veterans working with this particular population, they may not always understand the value of stable housing. Some do. There are a percentage that are so chronically homeless and so used to the transient lifestyle. Building that rapport is vital in making sure that once they get into housing, they would still be willing to seek help and support with those other areas where they may have need. Now, there are some barriers when it comes to housing, as I found in my own research, such as discharge status, local housing costs and inventory, which is a big, big factor here in California, especially LA County, and bureaucratic delays. That can shift funding, and that could change, as administrations change as well. And what I also found is veterans with less than honorable discharges are twice as likely to face long-term housing instability or experience chronic homelessness. Not because of behavior per se, but because of systemic barriers, extreme administrative barriers. So what I wanted to do is with each tier, I wanted to give a background on why this particular tier is important, and then also provide some key resources that I believe would be important, and just help anyone that is looking for access or resources in this particular area, just to help the just guide someone on where they can find those resources. So looking at some of these programs I have personally worked with in my professional career, one being Grant Per Diem, as I mentioned earlier. And Grant Per Diem provides transitional and housing supportive services for homeless veterans. And the goal is to help veterans build stability and the skills needed to thrive in permanent housing. They often partner with community agencies and nonprofits, and this is a nationwide program. This can be a bridge, is often treated as a bridge between emergency shelter and permanent housing. So it's a little different than shelter. There's a little bit more of a time that they can spend in the program. And again, a part of that is really building that rapport and helping veterans to build those skills that they need to transition to permanent housing, while also utilizing other resources that can provide exactly what financial or other assistance to help them to maintain that housing. And so another program that I have worked with professionally is the supportive services for veteran families. That's actually a major program of my current organization now. And so SSVF, I like to say SSVF, I like to call SSVF the purse of the VA, in the sense that the SSVF receives the same, it comes from the same pot. However, SSVF has a lot of flexibility in how it can utilize that funding in order to help veterans that are transitioning from literal homelessness or at risk in order to into permanent housing or to stabilization. And so SSVF offers rapid rehousing for literal homeless veterans, and then homelessness prevention, which is for those veterans that are housed that maybe fell behind utilities or rent. And so it is meant to be a short-term financial assistance program that also utilizes case management to not only provide that financial assistance, but also connect veterans to long-term support. And so this program in particular can be utilized for both individual veterans and veteran households. So one of the other well-known housing programs that is a great resource is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, essentially HUD. It's a program between HUD and the VA. The VA Supportive Housing Program, we call it HUD-VASH for short. And this is a rental assistance voucher that's very similar to Section 8. That's why it falls under HUD. Same thing, this comes with intensive case management depending on the need. And it works with community agencies. It works quite often with SSVF. And then again, it focuses on long-term stability through wraparound services. And this is a lifelong program. As long as the veteran continues to meet the income requirements for this program, they can enjoy permanent housing. And again, it creates that space for them to address some of their other needs. And lastly, one of the programs that I wanted to bring up as well is the VA Home Loan Program. And the VA, this program offers competitive interest rates for veterans, including a no down payment for veterans that are looking to purchase a home. There is some eligibility requirements for this that are a little different than the other programs, but it is designed to help make home ownership accessible for honorably discharged veterans. And so not only does the program offer a clear path towards home ownership, it also includes protections against foreclosure and refinancing support. And veterans can also apply through private lenders with a VA backing. So it's a great program. Again, it's restricted to honorably discharged veterans, but it still remains a a resource for veterans that are looking for something more stable, with that also may have those financial resources. So looking at the next tier, that's going to be the income and employment tier. So income provides financial independence and confidence, and that this can be derived from earned income, guaranteed and non-guaranteed income. And so for most veterans, employment is more than income, it's identity, especially for veterans. As you know, if you know a veteran, if you are a veteran, oftentimes when veterans meet each other, especially within the same branch, the first thing that we ask is, what was your MOS? That's a term that the Marine Corps uses. I know some of the other branches use another term, but in terms of what did you do, right? What was your job? What was your contribution? Excuse me. What was your contribution to the branch that you served in? And that just says a lot about the person, their experience. And so it really does add to who you are, your identity. And that follows veterans as they get out of the military as well. And so employment as a civilian is a chance for veterans to regain a new purpose and also to develop self-sufficiency. However, the civilian workforce doesn't always translate military experience well. And many veterans often have to start from scratch, even, with years of leadership and skilled experience. And so I wanted to go over some programs that can help bridge that gap that veterans can utilize, and it just to help them to connect to whatever further more long-term employment, skills sets and or income that will allow them to be self-sustaining, and then also to be able to address some of those other tiers that we're going to look at. So the first is looking at veteran readiness employment in veteran readiness and employment program. And this is a program that is designed, is often called Chapter 31. It is an additional education and income resource comparable to the GI Bill. And so this provides additional support for veterans who are service connected, which is a criteria seeking employment or higher education. And so this program provides career counseling, skills training, resume development, and job placement. And so, as I mentioned, this program can also fund education programs, apprenticeships, and on-the-job training. The goal is to provide a service-connected veteran with additional education or skills that they may need in order to either adapt to a shift in the workforce, or adapt to maybe a disability that no longer serves their current employment track. Hire Heroes USA is a nonprofit that specializes in veteran and military spouse employment coaching. And so, similar to VRE, it offers resume writing, interview prep, and direct employer connections. And so, again, this is a nonprofit that primarily focuses on service members that are translating military experience into civilian career language, which is very vital, very, very important. And then they also have a measurable impact, and with 80% of their clients securing employment within 6 months. So the GI Bill is a education resource provided to veterans that are also eligible. They must meet criteria for this as well. And this can pay up to a certain amount of months that typically will cover a 2 to 4 year traditional college program or apprenticeship. But this is an education resource that was introduced back in the 40s to help our World War veterans returning home reacclimate into civilian society. It is a great resource if eligible. And many schools that participate in what is called a yellow ribbon program will match the costs. If a veteran attends a program and they run out of their GI Bill, the school will pick up the rest of the bills. So I guess I should say to cover the remainder of that veteran's education. And so it's just a great resource and to explore. And many veterans, including myself, I've used the GI Bill to pay for the remainder of my undergrad degree and also my master's degree. And it has really helped to propel my career and prepare me to do the work that I do now. The next is the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, that is HVRP. Excuse me, that is the VA's employment program that is focused on helping veterans. That's similar to some of these other programs such as VRE and Hired Heroes, looking at resume building and development, job matching, training and placement. And this, of course, is focused on veterans that are homeless. And it works in tandem with other housing programs to help veterans to build up those skills as they are preparing to transition into permanent housing. The Department of Defense Skill Bridge program is a fairly new program. This was created for active duty members that can begin to work with civilian employers to develop skills up to 6 months pre EOS, which is their discharge from active uniform service. So this is a modern program that I think is widely underutilized because I think it's such a great program for service members, and it helps to give them not only they're able to start building those relationships with employers and those skills, but it helps the service members to get an idea of not only what the market looks like, but what the steps may be that they need to take in terms of what that landscape looks like when they finally discharge from active uniform service. And last is the compensated work therapy. This program is probably one of my favorites as a service provider. I've had many of my clients utilize this program, and I've seen the positive impact that it has made on the veterans, especially some of my very disabled veterans that needed a place where they could work at their own pace and develop a more constructive daily schedule. And a lot of the veterans that I know that have went through the CWT program have been able to be successful in gaining full-time employment. And so one of the key insights that I want to share before I move on to the next tier, looking at just workforce development as a whole, and when workforce programs collaborate with housing and healthcare providers, veterans not only find jobs faster, but they stay employed longer. And so it really gives you a different perspective of reintegration. that is not just the responsibility of one agency, of one component. It's shared. So the next tier is looking at healthcare and insurance. And this is where we focus on sustaining wellness, and quite frankly, not even just sustaining wellness, but recognizing wellness as an important goal to strive towards. So sustaining wellness is essential for long-term reintegration. So after separation, many veterans will lose the health care that was provided during active uniform service. And so they must reestablish eligibility as a civilian. And this is a process that can be lengthy depending on many different factors. And so early attention to wellness, which includes physical, behavioral, and emotional wellness, can prevent crisis later. And so there are many different, I wanted to provide many different resources for healthcare and insurance, because a lot of veterans do not utilize the VA healthcare system, whether due to administrative barriers such as their character of discharge, or they just simply do not want to interact with the VA in that way. And that's okay. That is a personal choice. I think the most important thing is just making sure that you have connection to something that you can depend on if you're in need of any health or wellness resources or services. So the first one is going to be your standard VA healthcare systems. These are peppered throughout the United States, but I do have to say, in some rural areas, there might not be as many. But in areas such as those, the VA does a great job to coordinate with local and community-based healthcare systems that can provide those emergent and sustaining resources, healthcare resources to veterans. And so the VA healthcare system provides comprehensive medical, mental health, and specialty care. The VA in modern times have identified uh, the purpose and value of whole care, looking at the entire veteran, and then not just focusing on certain areas of care. So often, a lot of VA healthcare systems will offer a wide variety of services and resources, from groups, substance use groups. It could be just groups for veterans to come in if they want to learn just a very niche skill, or just being able to interact with other veterans, socializing and things like that. They've done a great job to really open that up so that veterans don't just see it as, I'm going because I may have a medical ailment or a mental health need. I can go if I want to, if you want to go and talk to someone about new resources that are available to veterans, enroll in, again, a knitting group. So the services are wide in terms of variety. And so, of course, it includes access to this healthcare system includes primary care providers, specialists, and preventative services. And so the VA also offers telehealth and community care options. And so for veterans that may not want to come into the hospital, and if you want to engage in therapy of many different types, you can also engage in those services through telehealth. And so again, the VA tries to do its best to reach as many veterans as possible by partnering with community care, by partnering with community care options and other community care systems, so that veterans, if they can't get to the VA, they can at least go to these partners and they can get the help that they need. And so vet centers is an integration of the VA healthcare system, not quite, but it's a bit of a community-based facility that often will provide not the full service that you would get at a more a VA healthcare system, but they provide counseling and like therapy supports. They focus on PTSD, military sexual trauma, and family reintegration. And so what's interesting about the vet centers is that you do not have to be healthcare eligible in order to receive these services. And I have often found that some veterans feel a lot more comfortable engaging with the vet center than they do with a full VA healthcare system. And so you can also receive peer support and outreach and community education. Again, this is a really good place for veterans that are looking for answers of any resource that you can think of. Vet centers is always a really good place to start if a VA hospital is not preferred. So looking at one of the things that I wanted to also include when looking at those primary resources is that there is a percentage of veterans that do not qualify for healthcare services. However, that is not a huge barrier in terms of getting access to healthcare and insurance. And so I wanted to share not only about state-funded healthcare, about also where to go to be able to access these services. And so state-funded healthcare, of course, fills in gaps for uninsured and underinsured veterans who have not enrolled in VA healthcare or are ineligible for VA healthcare. And so state-funded healthcare can offer low-cost or sliding scale services to include dental, behavioral health, and primary care. Some of those same specialties that you would get through the VA healthcare systems. And so they often coordinate with Department of Public Health, which is a department that is present in each state. And they often will have resources for veterans. So if a veteran, despite where they are, if they have any questions about healthcare insurance, the Department of Public Health is always a good place to start as well. If you're looking, especially the veteran is aware that they do not qualify for VA healthcare services. And so and even if they do, if that can also be an entry point into the veteran services, access system. And so it's just really good to have some resources. Medicare is another one that is available to veterans that are disabled. There's just a lot of resources, to explore that is worth exploring instead of going an extended amount of time without health insurance. And county clinics, of course, that depends on the location, where the veteran is located, but those are also a stop for healthcare resources, and perhaps even one-time services. I don't know if that's the best way to describe that. Maybe something, and then also a resource for referrals to more long-term services. And then I did want to include it's called the Domiciliary Residential Rehabilitation Treatment Program, which we also in this field we call the DOM. This is a residential program specific to veterans that addresses a kind of a wide variety of different health needs. They provide treatment for medical, psychiatric, vocational, and social needs. And so the purpose of the DOM is to restore functional independence and to help veterans to not only to reintegrate, but to also be ready to transition into permanent housing. And so this does provide a structured and supportive living environment. This is considered like an inpatient program of some sort, and it's very beneficial for veterans that are needing stabilization before they're able to start looking at independent housing, especially in those areas of medical, psychiatric, and vocational. And so these are some of the main resources that I have worked with as a service provider. I also receive services through the VA healthcare system. And once I decided to engage in the resources that are available to me, and I learned how to ask for help, and I went to these primary providers of support, I really started to open up my eyes personally as a veteran of what is available. And it really helped me to feel like I wasn't alone, or that I didn't have to go through the things that I was experiencing alone. And so looking at, before I get into the last tier, I wanted to share what the Schulzberg transition theory, which I believe is the best framework to explain the intricacies of veteran transition from or service member transition from active uniform service to civilian. And so this theory, which also grounded my research, helps to describe how people adapt to major life changes. And so Schulzberg transition theory identifies 4 key factors, which is also known as the 4 S's. And each factor influences how, again, how the individual will navigate any major change in their life. And so the first one is the situation, right? What is the nature of the transition? And for the purposes of today's training, that's looking at how, like veterans, right? This change from active uniform service to a civilian. And so that's a major life change. The individual's internal strengths, mindset, and identity. So, and particularly for this, I think defined identity is most important looking at this factor. The support, so looking at your support system, your family, your peers, your access to organizations or identified organizations that can provide support. And lastly, what are the strategies that the individual will use, should I say know and will use in order to help to manage this major life change. And so what are those coping skills that they're going to be utilizing during that change? And so when veterans lose their built-in support systems from the service, as I mentioned earlier, that the guarantee that I will always have a place to live, I will always have something to eat. And so even for veterans as like myself that lived in the barracks for most of my service, if my very modest paycheck was running low and I couldn't run to the base McDonald's to grab a double cheeseburger, I knew that I could go to the chow hall and I could get something to eat. And so I never felt like I would ever go hungry, or I would have to, managing money is also a very important skill, and that is something that we are trained on as well. But those basic resources are things I never felt like were ever going to be an issue. If I had a physical ailment, I knew that I could always go to sick call. And so the resources, those were things as an adult I just never had to think about and consider. And so having to go from this very, I don't want to say privilege per se, but having to go through life through those 4 years, not having to think about those very important things, that are important to being an adult and being independent, to all of a sudden having to think about where I was going to live, how I was going to eat, how I was going to transportation to where I needed to go, finding the right job with enough income to pay for my housing, all of those things. It's quite a bit of a change. And so I really, really like how this theory really brings it into perspective, into how, and then it also provides the flexibility of saying that this allows for individuality in terms of how while the transition from active uniform service to civilian life is, each veteran goes through that, in the manner in which they experience that transition is going to be very different. And looking at these 4 pillars helps to kind of determine, or even maybe even predict, how that veteran will proceed through the transition. And then with that prediction, utilizing, following up with those resources that provide that support to help them to be successful. And so now looking at, again, looking at how veterans lose their built-in support systems from the service, belonging identity is also one of those big things. The technical stuff, of course, is really important, but at the core, belonging identity, that's probably, I think, the most one of the hardest things to, I think, kind of reimagine as a service, as a veteran. And so this is where leisure and community and purpose-driven engagement become essential. And so it restores the connection, it rebuilds confidence in that service, in that veteran, and also reinforces a sense of meaning after service. And so this is coming to my last tier, which is leisure, belonging, and purpose. So this is the human element. And this is what I consider to be the heart of this hierarchy. This is the point where the transition becomes transformation. And so after years of service, many veterans struggle to redefine what their why is. When you're in the service, coming back to an earlier comment that I made about whenever service veterans encounter each other and they ask, what was your job, what you did, that providing the idea of your contribution, your why. Everyone contributed to the mission in a very particular way. That's how the mission is successful. And so when you go from that understanding that my job has a very particular purpose, to now in the sea of people that all have different purpose, and everyone is going in different directions, that's often the hardest part to kind of really to wrangle with, is who am I now? And so leisure and belonging, and even in my professional experience, leisure and belonging is often overlooked, yet it is really essential for the mental health and community reintegration. And so, in fact, this is actually a common question that we asked during intake for homeless services. And so, looking at some of these pillars, right? So, the pursuit of joy, belonging, and purpose fosters resilience. And this is something that I personally can speak to, as this is something I probably struggle with a lot as a veteran of even in the work that I was doing in my personal time. My mental health challenges often would compete with my pursuit of joy and belonging. So in those times when I needed a little bit more support, I couldn't think about the things that would make me happy, and things that, and finding something that I enjoyed to do. And so every veteran is going to be different, but it's very, very important to connect to that. And so, there are ways that veterans can find these to connect to that purpose, by volunteering, maybe going back to school, recreation, sports, mentorship. Not only being a mentee, but also being a mentor as well. And then, as I mentioned, the Schulzberg transition theory, um, it helps to understand the purpose and the value of meaning and belonging, and why that is such an important factor when we're talking about veteran transition. So some of the resources that I wanted to share today are one, the Mission Continues. This is actually an organization that I had reached out to early in my transition from active uniform service, and it provides an adapted leadership kind of platform for veterans to find leadership in their communities and civic like purpose. And so they operate similar to the structure of active service. They have platoons that are specific to locations. And so again, it gives veterans, especially those that held leadership roles, an opportunity to step back into a leadership role, a meaningful leadership role, and give back to your community. It builds purpose through channeling those military values and leadership skills into community impact. And it also helps to strengthen those social connections and help to reshape that post-service identity. And so again, you're working with other veterans, you're doing good work in the community. It's just a great, great, great organization. The next resources that I wanted to share is Vet Tickets, Vet Ticks. This is the Veteran Tickets Foundation. This is a free or discounted, this is a foundation that provides free or discounted tickets to just a variety of different events, and sporting events, concerts, cultural activities. I've personally utilized this. I've gone to comedy shows. I've known veterans that actually got tickets to Beyonce's last tour. And so there's a lot of it really just, excuse me, it really opens you up to just different activities that are happening in your community, and it's low cost. Oftentimes, and for especially for those free tickets, you only have to pay for just I believe they call it like shipping, but processing. So it's just a really, really great resource that veterans can use for themselves, and they can get tickets and also bring family and friends. And so it just kind of creates an experience to bond. You have an opportunity, depending on what it is, to relieve stress, and you're also engaging with your community. And so again, this is available to all veterans. So you just have to, I think, provide identification information through I don't want to say va.me. There's a I'm drawing a blank, but there's a website that is utilized by uh a lot of different because I'm thinking about like oh my gosh, what is that park, like parks and stuff that are looking to provide like free tickets for veterans and things like that. There's a system, ID me. So it utilizes ID me, which can that you can go in and provide information. It verifies your veteran status, and so you're able to go and again get tickets and engage in different activities within your community. And so this is just a great way and encourages wellness and social connection. And it's an opportunity to explore something that just that brings joy and makes you feel like you belong in your community. And so the USO is the United Service Organization. And this is an organization that provides support on both the active duty and civilian side. But the USO has been around for a very long time. They are located at most of your major airports and communities, and they provide ongoing programs and events and volunteer opportunities for, as I mentioned, also, again, active duty, but also veterans. And it's really about just connection and morale. I can definitely recall some very um, uh, some very fun experiences, even during my deployments, where the USO came out and different artists and singers and rappers came out to provide a show to us just to lift morale. And so the USO really understands the value of networking and social engagement and why that's important for the military community. And then lastly is the VFW, which is the Veteran of Foreign Wars. And the VFW is a veteran services organization that is essentially a peer network. And so they're of course veterans, and they provide advocacy for veterans within their community, within their kind of service area. They also offer scholarships, like family assistance and community service initiatives. They're very involved in the community and helping veterans, and even veterans that are, even those that are transitioning into the military. And so what I really like about organizations such as the VFW is that they provide, again, this is also a platform to transition that military leadership. And so you are re-engaging your leadership skills within your community. And they also have a mission that is close to home. And these organizations really serve to bridge a gap between personal connection and civic engagement. And so, again, the Schulzberg theory reminds us that the adaptation of depends on how we adapt during that transition. Largely depends on the meaning that we derive from that major life change. And so the ability to find purpose, again, is directly linked to long-term resilience. Okay, so there's one last slide, and then I just have a few more. I don't know how much time we had, but I'm gonna quickly go through this. This is just what I wanted to add a visual aid to describe how each tier interacts with each other. So this diagram, as you can see, each tier kind of overlaps with the reintegration being in the middle. And so what I wanted to show is that reintegration is not linear. It's it is a it's a Venn diagram and that it twists, it adapts, it finds supports where it can. And so, and which I liken to a veteran's journey, because it constantly changes, and so we're constantly having to adapt and overcome. And so, but at the core is that ability to be able to feel as though we are a vital part of our community. And so with a new purpose. So I want to end with a few recommendations. So if I were to talk to service members that were getting ready to discharge from active uniform service, I would focus on just very key things that also apply to my my hierarchy of transition needs. So one, even if the veteran does not want to engage in VA healthcare services, it's always good to go and enroll. And largely, you can live the rest of your life without ever utilizing a VA program. However, if um, in the time in which you leave this earth and your family has questions and they're looking to understand what resources are available for burial and things like that, is going to make it so much easier if you're already enrolled in the system for them. So that's one of the things that I always I use as essentially as a motivation. You don't have to fully engage in healthcare services, but it really does help the family and to help them to get to information and help them to fill in gaps and answer questions in your absence. The second is going to be apply for a mentorship program, such as American Corporate Partners. This is a veteran mentorship program, and this just helps veterans during that reintegration stage or that transition stage to find employment. You are working with a mentee, and a mentor who is also a veteran, and you are connecting with, again, you're connecting with employment services, but it's someone that you can talk to that's been through the process that can kind of help you to navigate to what your next step is. The third is meeting with a veteran services officer to assess and or apply for Service Connect disability or discharge upgrade, depending on which is applicable. And lastly, join your local veteran services organizations such as the VFW, the American Legion, American Veterans. Elks also has a veteran services component, or the Marine Corps League. Getting in with an organization with people who understand who you are, what you've experienced, what you're trying to do is so important. And it really helps, again, to re-engage your purpose as a civilian. So this is my call to action. And just some final takeaways. Every veteran's transition is unique, but needs are universal. And so it's just, I as a veteran, I've had many different challenges throughout the time that I discharged from the Marine Corps in 2010, and I've literally experienced up and downs since that time. So much of my life has changed, and I often hear comments, "Oh, well, you seem so put together and you seem so stable." I like to make jokes that I'm heavily medicated and things like that, but I really had to learn how to ask for help. And while on the outside things may have seemed stable and normal, on the inside was a lot of turmoil. And so the just understanding that if with your interactions, whether you're a veteran or you know a veteran or you work with veterans, just understanding that, I think, is half the battle. So some of the things that we can do, again, is support your local veteran services organization. That is as easy as a Google search. Look and see who's out there on the front lines fighting the good fight, working with veterans and helping them to thrive. And then also, this is something that we all can individually do, is vote in favor of legislation that expands supportive services and resources for veterans in your state. And to end, I have a shameless plug, and I don't know if I'll be able to do this because I don't know how well you guys can see this, but I wanted to add that Village for Vets is an organization that provides supportive services to veterans in Los Angeles County. We also have an emergency fund program that provides emergency fund support to veterans in all of Southern California. So we can step in to help at a moment's notice, and just, those situations where you just need a hand and you're not really sure where to go. That is where you can come to Village for Vets, and we can provide those resources and that help. So I just want to add that in, and leave this up. And then if I have time to open it up for questions, come back here. Look this up. Does anyone have any questions? I can't actually, let me just close this out. Let me stop sharing my screen, and then I can see actually if anyone is raising their hand. Give me 1 second. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. So again, thank you so much, Regina, for this. The question I have for you is that since you delved deeply into this work, what is the most gratifying thing that you've gotten from delving deeply into this subject, especially as a veteran?
In terms of research?
In terms of anything,
Or
honestly.
anything. Okay. It's interesting. I don't know if this fully answers the question, but some of my, I had this really interesting experience, and this happened quite often when I worked in grant per diem programs for transitional housing. There will be days when I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. Like I can't do it. This is just, it's so much. I'm working with so many veterans have so many challenges, and I I don't know how if I'm effective. And I was like, I'm experiencing my own issues. This is just too much. I can't do this anymore. And every single time I get to the point where I feel like I want to give up, a veteran walks into my office and says, "Hi, Miss Regina. I'm moving into my place today, and I just want to thank you so much for your support and what you did for me." And I always say, I didn't do anything, because I truly don't believe I did anything. They come in, they do the work, and they spend the time to prepare themselves for this. And it's hard work, but they always come and just right in that moment. And I always say that it has to be divine intervention, because that is when I understand what the research, what the work, what the long days, what that means. So I've definitely had quite of those. But thank you.
Are there any additional questions from the audience?
I have a question. Hi,
Yes,
Dr.
Dr.
Lopez.
Barkett.
I have a question for you. How can the general public or just the local communities better contribute to supporting veterans beyond just donations?
So there are always a lot of volunteer opportunities. The VA is really within, I would say, like the last maybe like the last 4 or 5 years, and I could be off. But the VA has expanded veteran peers. Now, you don't necessarily have to be a veteran to become a peer per se. There is a particular program for that. But the point is, the VA understands the value of that interaction, of not just being a peer, but also being a part of the community, and building those relationships with veterans, with just every day. A lot of organizations will have volunteer opportunities for you to come, and whether they have a special event, or just they want to provide a class. For instance, a lot of residential programs need people to come and teach just subjects on different things, financial wellness, and just a number of things that are going to help the veterans, and empower them with those tools, so that when they transition into permanent housing, they can be successful and they can thrive. So that's another way. Coming to do a class, as you mentioned, donating money, donating clothes. But I think the time is really the most impactful. Is being a community member, going into your nearest veteran services organization, and just saying, "Hey, I can come and pass out food, or I can come and help with, um, teaching a class on a teaching class," and things like that. There's so many things. I think that there's a wide variety of things that you can do that is particular to what the individual feels comfortable to do, and what you have time for. But we're, as a veteran services organization myself, we're always looking for volunteers to kind of help us with engaging with our veterans. And so there's a lot of things you can do. I hopefully answered that question. I feel like I gave you a lot.
You did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Reed, you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I can.
Okay, my name's Kelly Reed, and I thank the ODK for putting on this program. I was initiated in ODK in Florida State University back when I was a senior in college. But I'm a vet, United States Air Force JAG officer, and I'm up in
Thank you
Northern
for your
California.
service.
You bet. And today I'm a member of a barbershop chorus. We sang at the Veterans Ceremony today up in Marin County. Our
Wow.
barbershop group, we sang the national anthem. We sang God Bless America and America the Beautiful and Amazing Grace last May. And so we've been asked to do
Amazing.
that. But what I've done is join our local American Legion post. And today they were offering up to the entire, we had about 1,200 people in attendance at that today in the
Wow.
Marin County Civic Center Auditorium Exhibition Hall. And today we're emphasizing to all the vets that were in the audience to join VFW, American Legion, get connected with your fellow vets, because I joined our American Legion Post 313 a couple of years ago, and all this, I walked in the door, and they essentially designated me as the first vice commander in charge of membership. So I've been
Wow.
doing that, and I'm a member of a group called the Old Guard of guys from Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps that meet once every 3 months, and another group called Sons in Retirement. So that gives me connection after practicing law in California for 54 years and being
Wow.
a JAG officer as handling courts martials and that type of thing. It's really connected me well. So I recommend to everybody that VFW, we're well represented along with all the Legion posts in Marin County today. And that's what they were emphasizing. All the vets should join up with that if they have any problem, because I've never had so much fun, and the camaraderie is excellent. So I really thank ODK for putting you on as this program. So I'll take this back to my American Legion post as well. And thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate that.
And thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
If we have no additional questions, number one, I want to thank everyone for attending today's Teach Out. I really appreciate you. One of our newest members of the spring that we inducted, Regina, was willing to step up for Veterans Day as a veteran to talk to other people about this important topic. We really appreciate your service. One of the beautiful things about the National Circle is that it's not bound by location. You can be anywhere in the country. You could be attending any school as long as there isn't a circle on your campus. And one of the first, we really are a new idea within ODK. And the beautiful thing is that this is one of our signature programs where we want our members from within to teach out to the community at large. And this is a beautiful experience. If you aren't a current member of ODK, we have open call for membership that ends on the 18th. You can go to odk.org/national circle and apply for membership. If you know of a high performing student in college that ODK is not on their campus, please encourage them also to apply for the National Circle. If you know of a professor or are a professor or staff member of a college, you are also eligible to apply for the National Circle. And so that is my shameless plug for this event, is that we are open for new members, and we would hope that if you enjoyed what you saw today, that you would apply for membership so that we can continue this good work. And we look forward to future teach outs where you will be able to come and learn some more things. And also we are happy for you to attend any programming that we have going forward in the future. I really appreciate you, and thank you to the veterans on the call. Thank you for your service. Happy Veterans Day.
Yes, happy Veterans Day.
I appreciate you spending your Saturday, what am I talking about? Your day with us and not finding it robbery to spend your Tuesday off for some of us with ODK. And again, remember, ODK's application is open. Thank you so much for attending, and enjoy the rest of your days. Or if you're in California, you have a lot of day left. And if you're on the East Coast like me, the day is winding down.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
Thank you, veteran.